Action hero governor. And the fleecing of America. Government contractors overcharging by the millions. And guess who's paying the bill?
This is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams, reporting tonight from Los Angeles.
Good evening. The U.S. today announced a major capture in the war on terrorism. And while Abu Faraj al-Libi is not a household name, officials tonight say he is the third most senior leader of al-Qaeda, a planner of the 9/11 attacks, who also twice attempted to assassinate Pakistan's president. More on that angle in just a moment. But first tonight, how Pakistani special forces cornered and then captured a man they have wanted and badly for years. We begin here tonight with NBC News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Andrea Mitchell.
U.S. officials say the arrest of Abu Faraj al-Libi resulted from critical victory.
He was a major facilitator and a chief planner for the al-Qaeda network. His arrest removes a dangerous enemy who is a direct threat to America.
Why is he so important? As al-Qaeda's third in command, Abu Faraj al-Libi could provide new leads to Osama bin Laden and his top deputy, Ayman al-Zawahiri. And he can give details about his own attempts to kill Pakistan's President Musharraf and future terror plots. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
Tom Brokaw has just returned from the region, a 10-day trip with stops in 4 nations, including Afghanistan and Pakistan, where he spoke with President Pervez Musharraf. He is with us tonight from our headquarters in New York. Tom, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. And the Abu Faraj al-Libi capture is obviously a very big deal in that part of the world and beyond. And of course, it raises the question, what about Osama bin Laden? What else can we expect? I spoke just last Saturday with President Musharraf about that, and earlier in the week with the American commander in Afghanistan.
Where do you think he is, and why is it so hard to capture him?
Well, I can't say where he is. He could be anywhere on the border, on the Afghan side or even Pakistan side, or he may be shifting regularly, changing places.
Is there a danger for you personally and for your government that if Pakistani troops take down Osama bin Laden in what would probably be a difficult struggle, that it would cause an uprising in some of the cities in your country and in the refugee camps?
Well, there will be effects, but we shouldn't be so naive as to capture him and then go around telling everyone and going around with him everywhere. I mean, there is a method of dealing with the situation.
But it would be delicate, wouldn't it?
It will be certainly delicate, not only here, but even in the Islamic world.
In Afghanistan, General David Barno is leaving the American command after 18 months on the job, feeling good about what's been accomplished, but aware the road ahead remains long and difficult. What's the difference in the kind of insurgent that you're picking up now and a year ago?
Well, I think that there are very little indications today compared to a year ago of any ideological motivation for these insurgents. We see more and more of them being paid to conduct attacks in Afghanistan.
And you have the parliamentary elections this fall. How worried are you that the Taliban and al-Qaeda will come in this summer in an effort to disrupt those?
Well, they'll certainly try. They got zeroed out on the scoreboard last year, fundamentally throughout the entire 12 months of 2004. So they're looking for ways to get back and get some score up on the board. We expect them to do some type of spectacular attack to get media attention and to focus away from the defeats they've had.
2 questions on the minds of everyone. Can you win this war, and how long is it going to take?
We are winning this war for sure today. I mean, there's no question as we look back on events in the last year and a half that, in my view at least, that there's been a corner turned here in Afghanistan.
Is it going to be more expensive than the American people may anticipate?
I don't know. We'll have to see what level of expense American people are willing to tolerate over here, and that's always part of the equation, and it's one of the more difficult things we wrestle with. But there's a lot of other players out there. There's a lot of great international players. NATO is taking a larger role. So I think in combination, we have to have the will to make this work and to sustain that effort.
Tomorrow night, what it's like for American Special Forces in Afghanistan. I spent time with one team in a remote and dangerous part of the country where the Taliban are constantly moving in and out these days. And for the Special Forces, then, it's a life of odd combinations. Close combat one day and trying to win hearts and minds the next. Brian?
Tom Brokaw tonight from our New York studios. Tom, thanks. Welcome back. We'll see you again tomorrow night.
Thanks.
In Iraq today, the worst single act of terrorism in 2 months. A suicide bomber masquerading as a job applicant in the northern city of Erbil, a Kurdish area, killed dozens of people who were trying to become police officers themselves and ended up wounding many more. And that was just the first attack on this bloody day in Iraq. NBC's Richard Engel is in Baghdad for us tonight.
Around 130 people have died. Dad.
There was a surprising turn today at the sentencing hearing of Army Private Lindy England. Earlier this week, she pleaded guilty to abusing Iraqi detainees at Abu Ghraib prison. But today, a military judge threw out that guilty plea. It happened after accused Abu Ghraib ringleader Charles Grainer, who was testifying in England's defense, said the notorious photos taken at the prison were meant for legitimate training purposes. The judge immediately stopped the trial and changed England's plea to not guilty, saying he's not convinced she knew her actions were wrong at the time. This sends her case now back to square one to be reviewed by Fort Hood's commander for possible charges. Now to the Pentagon, where NBC News has learned the military has new information tonight about a disturbing incident in Fallujah that was caught on tape by an NBC News camera. NBC's Jim Miklaszewski on duty for us tonight at the Pentagon. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. NBC News has learned that the Marine Corps has now officially ruled that no charges will be filed against that Marine who shot it.
Jim Miklaszewski at the Pentagon for us tonight. Thanks. And one more note here on Iraq. A large amount of money under U.S. control, roughly $100 million from the sale of Iraqi oil and other assets that was supposed to be for reconstruction projects, is now missing. An Inspector General audit finds all the money may have been stolen by American managers or their field agents. In any event, the money cannot be accounted for. An investigation is tonight underway. On the subject of money to Wall Street, briefly, stocks were sharply higher, helped by billionaire investor Kirk Kerkorian's announcement that he is buying up a substantial amount of stock in beleaguered General Motors. GM shares were up 18% on today's news. The Dow finished up almost 128 points. NASDAQ was up more than 29 points on the day. When NBC Nightly News continues this Wednesday night from Los Angeles, a reality check for the governor of this state, Arnold Schwarzenegger, backing off some big plans, approval rating falling tonight. Is he in trouble? And later, government contractors accused of overcharging, and the numbers are huge. The fleecing of America tonight. We're back from our NBC News Los Angeles bureau tonight with NBC News In Depth. He is an action movie superstar turned governor of California. But after a strong opening, Arnold Schwarzenegger is in some trouble, and his poll numbers now show it. And now he is struggling to save the state budget and his reputation along with it. In Depth tonight, here is NBC's Mark Mullen.
Governor Schwarzenegger today at a carefully managed...
This is really close the borders.
The governor himself turned governor is learning that he is not immune to political beatings. And though on NBC News, Sacramento, California.
And up next after a break, another election, this one in Britain. Which way will it go after a brutal campaign, and will President Bush lose a crucial friend? The death of U.S. Army Ranger Pat Tillman in Afghanistan last year was one of the most high-profile and heartbreaking in the U.S. war on terrorism, especially after it was revealed that Tillman, who had quit a promising career in the NFL to fight for his country, had been killed by so-called friendly fire by fellow Rangers. Now the Army admits its own investigators held back their finding that this was a friendly fire incident. They kept that fact secret for weeks, even from Tillman's family, until after his nationally televised memorial service, presumably to avoid embarrassment for the unit. The war in Iraq is a huge issue in the final frenzied hours now before tomorrow's national elections in Britain. NBC's Jim Maseda has more on the fight of Tony Blair's political life and how it is he can lose even if he wins.
With the finish line in sight, Prime Minister Tony Blair raced across three-quarters of Britain on this, the final day of a grueling month. Carries mixed message on Iraq.
I actually did vote for the $87 billion before I voted against it.
But despite his lead in the polls, Blair is treating this race like a dead heat, because if he wins tomorrow but his Labour Party loses its large majority.
Thank you very much.
We're back with the fleecing of America in a moment, and government contractors who may be cashing in, and you provided the money.
Stars in music and the Today Show come together live on the Plaza. And Friday, we rock on with Neil Diamond, followed by a sizzling summer lineup not to be missed. Let's get it started. The Toyota Concert Series, only on Today on NBC.
Tonight, an old viewer favorite is back. Remember the $600 toilet seat? Those outrageous stories that came out of the Pentagon years ago about waste and fraud and overbilling. Well, tonight they're back. The names have changed along with some of the services provided, but the plot line remains the same. Taxpayers are left to pay the bill for huge overcharges in another fleecing of America. Our report tonight from NBC's Kevin Cork.
It was a routine deal. The airport. Kevin Cork, NBC News, San Antonio.
That is the news for this Wednesday night. Don't forget Dateline tonight at 8/7 Central. I'm Brian Williams reporting tonight from Los Angeles. We'll be back in New York tomorrow night, and we'll look for you then. Good night.
We've gone on a high-flying adventure, found a lost love, made playing in a big band possible. What's next? Watch tomorrow on Today, where dreams come true.
Good morning. Break